Have you ever stood at a petrol station filling your car, noticed the smell drifting up from the nozzle, and felt something unexpected? Not revulsion. A kind of recognition. Something almost pleasant about it, warm and chemical and familiar in a way that is difficult to explain. You probably moved slightly away from the fumes out of vague habit, finished filling up, and drove away without thinking about it further. That smell is not petrol in general. It is one specific compound. The reason you can detect it at extraordinarily low concentrations is because your body evolved to treat it as a warning. The reason you find it strangely pleasant is a question nobody has fully resolved. The reason it is still in the fuel you handle with your bare hands, decades after its dangers were established beyond doubt, is a story about lobbying, delayed regulation, and internal documents an industry preferred the public not read. Every year, hundreds of millions of people fill their tanks and absorb trace amounts of benzene through their lungs and skin without knowing its name. Benzene is a simple aromatic hydrocarbon that occurs naturally in crude oil and survives the refining process. It is what gives petrol its characteristic scent. Humans can detect it at concentrations of around 1 to 5 parts per million, which is a vanishingly small amount. That sensitivity exists because benzene is a product of combustion and decay present in the natural environment for millions of years, and organisms that could detect and avoid it survived better. But here's the surprising truth. Benzene is not a mild irritant or a borderline concern. It is a Group 1 human carcinogen, the highest possible classification from the International Agency for Research on Cancer, meaning the evidence that it causes cancer in humans is conclusive, not probable or suspected. It causes leukemia. It damages bone marrow. And the oil industry possessed internal research establishing these connections from at least the 1940s, decades before benzene's dangers appeared in public health regulation. To understand how this happened, you have to understand what benzene was used for before it became primarily known as a fuel component. Through the early 20th century, benzene was a common industrial solvent used in printing, rubber manufacturing, shoemaking, and dozens of other trades where workers were exposed to it daily and at concentrations far higher than a petrol station encounter. Blood disorders and leukemia among these workers were documented in medical literature from the 1920s onward. By the 1940s, major petroleum companies had internal reports linking benzene exposure to blood abnormalities in workers. Think of it like a company discovering its product causes a slow, invisible injury and choosing to contest the methodology rather than change the product. The regulatory response moved at the pace that industries under legal and commercial pressure have always managed to achieve. The United States Environmental Protection Agency began restricting benzene in petrol in the 1990s, half a century after the internal evidence existed. European limits tightened similarly. Modern petrol in most regulated markets contains less than 1% benzene by volume. The smell has diminished but not disappeared. So the next time you catch that familiar scent at the pump and feel that strange flicker of recognition, you will know what your nose is detecting and why it can detect it at such low concentrations. You are smelling a carcinogen your body evolved to notice, in a fuel that contained far more of it for far longer than any regulator required. The warning system worked. The response to it took rather longer.